Saturday, the Huskers take the field at Memorial Stadium for the annual Red-White game. Live coverage of Nebraska spring football only right here on Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Game kicks off Saturday at 2 o'clock Eastern. And to get us ready for all things Nebraska, we check in with Mitch Sherman of The Athletic, who covers the Huskers as well as anybody out there. Mitch, big picture, what's the most intriguing storyline as we head into Saturday's spring game?
Well, it's on the offensive side for Nebraska, and that's really been the case since Scott Frost arrived in late 2017, bringing his renowned offense from UCF, and it just hasn't worked out, obviously, the way that people at Nebraska would have hoped. And here, ahead of the 2022 season, wholesale changes on the offensive side. So an entire new coaching staff on that side of the ball, with the exception of Sean Beckton, the tight ends coach, who is retained. But you have Mark Whipple as the new offensive coordinator coming over from Pitt. And, of course, the quarterbacks are front and center. Since the opening practice of spring on February 28th, this has been Casey Thompson's job. The Texas transfer has took the first reps with the number one offense, and he's not let go of that position, although Scott Frost has yet to call this race over.
So, Mitch, let's stay there. What does Thompson look like? How does he compare to Adrian Martinez, who basically ran this offense ever since he stepped foot in Lincoln?
Well, he looks great physically. I can't tell you what he looks like at practice because I've not watched practice, not been able to watch practice. Nebraska's taking full advantage of this period of secrecy that it has. We all know the Huskers open on August 27th in Dublin against Northwestern. So there is an element of mystery about what this offense with Mark Whipple in charge and presumably Casey Thompson as the quarterback is going to look like. So we've seen snippets of video that Nebraska has chosen to send out. He throws a good ball, and we know that from his time at Texas. He had an injured thumb that he fought through most of the 2021 season after that epic game, the overtime loss against Oklahoma, in which Thompson played very well and took command of the Texas offense. Physically, he's great. He's in great shape. The comp to Adrian Martinez, I think, is fair. They're both very good athletes. Thompson wasn't asked to run the ball a lot at Texas. I think he will be asked to do that more in this offense, but not to the point where you heighten the risk of injury for him, because behind Thompson, there's just not a lot of experience. Even with Logan Smothers, the starter for Nebraska from the Iowa game last year when Adrian Martinez was hurt, still there on the roster as Thompson's top backup, I would say, right now heading into the spring game.
Martinez took his fair share of criticism, which, as he admitted, he knew was part and parcel of being a quarterback running the show at Nebraska. But in his defense, Mitch, other than Wan'Dale Robinson 2 years ago, who even dealt with injury then, there hasn't been a consistent offensive weapon to help out Martinez. Is there a guy that can take that role this year and help out Thompson?
Yeah, I'd look to a couple of receivers. Well, first of all, I think you always kind of look at the running backs first, especially in a Scott Frost offense. His running backs haven't been as productive as he would like since the 2018 season with Devine Ozigbo, who was excellent as a senior in Frost's first year. It's been inconsistent since then. Robinson was a guy who shifted back and forth between running back and wide receiver, and there just hasn't been the kind of consistency that Nebraska would want. So perhaps there's an opportunity for Nebraska to do something with the three running backs who appear to be in command right now. You have Ramir Johnson, who started 7 games a year ago, back. You have Jacquez Yant, who's a big back and really, really looks the part at a fit 230, 35 pounds. He's somebody that I would say is worth watching in this Nebraska spring game. While they're not going to show a ton on offense, you're certainly going to be able to see the shape that Jacquez Yant is in and just what a load he's going to be for Big Ten defensive players in the 2022 season. And then Anthony Grant is kind of a wild card, ran for 1,700 yards in junior college last year, originally a Florida State signee and player before he transferred to junior college. Has been impressive, Grant has, in spring this year. At the receiver spot, Omar Manning, Oliver Martin, the former Michigan and Iowa receiver, and then Trey Palmer is the new guy. Maybe as the newcomer other than Thompson, who has made the biggest impact this spring, certainly on the Nebraska offense. Wide receiver, transferred from LSU, possibly the fastest player on the Nebraska roster. I would target him today as wide receiver 1 for the Huskers and Thompson as they head toward next fall.
Mitch, I've always thought it was interesting because when Scott Frost took over, everybody assumed this offense would be lights out and that the question would be defensively. But there were multiple games last year, and I would even go back to 2020, where this defense played well enough and the offense kind of stubbed its toe along the way. Are you surprised with the evolution of that defense, and that you can make an argument, especially after last year, that the defense was actually slightly ahead of the offense?
I'd say the defense was more than slightly ahead of the offense last year. It's been significant, and you can see it in the amount of turnover that the offense has had in comparison to the defense, where Eric Chenander, the coordinator, has been able to retain his talent, has been able to develop his talent, has been able to keep his coaching staff largely intact. It's one system that has evolved and improved from day one. Well, the offense has sputtered. It's been somewhat dysfunctional. It's been up and down. There have been high moments. There have been low moments. The defense is steady. At this point, no, I'm not surprised, because this is what we've seen. This is the track that we've seen since the first year. It wasn't flashy at the beginning, but in 2021, it was a defense that was good enough for Nebraska to win 8 or 9 games. The special teams and then some of the offensive inconsistency are what led to that 3-9 record, which, still today seems remarkable to say, with as competitive as Nebraska was, that it finished 3-9 in 2021. But we all know all of those 9 losses by single digits, and 8 of them by 1 score. The only team in NCAA history ever to lose 8 games by 1 score. That was in spite of excellent defensive play at times. Nebraska's gotten better against the run. It's strong against the pass. But there's a lot to replace there for Chenander and those coaches on the defensive side heading into next season.
Listen, when you lose that many games, it doesn't always come down to special teams and 1-score defeats, but in a lot of situations with Nebraska, that's exactly where it was. I mean, you could make an argument that last year, the special teams overall was one of the worst special teams groups, not just in the Big Ten, in the country. Is there the potential for a quick fix, or if not, how do you address that?
Yeah, I think a quick fix is needed. Scott Frost promoted Bill Bush, who was a defensive analyst, to special teams coordinator. Finally, now in his 5th season, Nebraska has a dedicated special teams coordinator. It's something that I thought Nebraska should have done probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You see it at other schools around the Big Ten, certainly around the Big Ten West, where these games come down to just little things. And for Nebraska, so many of the games came down to a blocked punt, or a kickoff return, or a punt return, or just a mistake on special teams that turned the momentum. Multiple times just last season, that was the case. So Bill Bush is in as special teams coordinator. This is his 3rd stint at Nebraska as an assistant coach or as a staffer at Nebraska, first under Tom Osborne. He was in a complimentary role. And then with Bill Callahan as coach from 2004 to 2007, Bush was a defensive coach. He's been at LSU, he's been at Ohio State, he's been at Wisconsin, Utah. Obviously an experienced guy, an excellent recruiter, but his strength is in the details, in getting his players to do the things that he talks to them about in meetings. Nebraska went out and got an early enrollee transfer, Brian Buschini, at punter from Montana. He was the FCS Ray Guy Award winner. They've got a kicker from Furman coming in the summer to presumably take over that job. Trey Palmer, who I mentioned earlier as the wide receiver from LSU, is an established kick returner. So yeah, I do think that there is the possibility for a quick fix, not to just take Nebraska into a serviceable special teams unit, but into a group at special teams that can help this team win games. And that's what it's going to need if it wants to make the kind of improvement that's necessary from one year into this next year.
All right, Mitch, off the field and into the locker room. Scott Frost made no secret the first couple of years he didn't like the chemistry. He made it clear, even publicly, that he felt a couple of guys had to leave the program for this team to get back to having the mentality that it had when he had the success that Nebraska had when he was a player. What sense are you getting of the change, and is there an improvement in that chemistry aspect heading into 2022?
Well, I don't think there's a 1997 mentality among this team. It's just impossible to have that kind of confidence when you've had 5 consecutive losing seasons. And I'm talking 97. That was Scott Frost's senior year, and that's the end of a 60-3 stretch that Nebraska enjoyed with 3 national championships. So, you can't get back to that. You can't have that kind of a locker room feel unless you're winning a lot of football games. But I do think the culture has improved tremendously at Nebraska under Frost in 4 years. I do think that last year the Huskers took a big step, especially with the leadership that they had that came first from the defensive side with a number of older players. I'm talking about guys like JoJo Doman, like Cam Taylor-Britt. And some of that has carried over to this team. There's still a defensive core of leadership that brings the intangibles that Scott Frost is looking for in the locker room. You see it with Nick Henrich, the returning inside linebacker. You see it with Garrett Nelson, who plays defensive end or outside linebacker in Chenander's scheme. You see it in places on the offensive side, on the offensive line, where they're trying to make vast improvements with new offensive line coach Donovan Raiola, who came from the Chicago Bears and was a star at Wisconsin in his playing days. So, the pieces are there, but Nebraska has yet to put them all together and take that improved chemistry and turn it into more victories.
All right, Mitch, I'll finish with a question that you've probably been asked multiple times over the last few years. I think I've asked it at least 2 or 3 times heading into each of the previous 3 football seasons. What has to happen for 2022 to be considered a success in Lincoln?
Well, Nebraska has to win more games than it loses, I think is a place to start. So that would be 7 wins. If you get to 6 wins, I suppose that can be viewed as progress because you'd be playing in the postseason for the first time since 2016, which is, again, one of those things that just seems amazing to say, but that's the reality at Nebraska right now. So win games. Start with the win in Ireland against Northwestern. We all saw that Illinois game a year ago in the opener in week 0, and that loss for Nebraska, just the way it went down and how devastating it was for Nebraska's ability to just kind of get over the hump. Well, it's a repeat scenario coming up in 2022, and you're doing it overseas against a team that you throttled by 7 touchdowns a year ago at home. So there needs to be a victory in that column in week 0 for Nebraska, so it can come back across the Atlantic Ocean and be 1-0 when it goes into non-conference play. Of course, Oklahoma's coming into Lincoln, but the schedule overall, it softens a bit. There's no Ohio State on it this year. So win more games than you lose, get to a bowl game. And I think if those things happen, 2022 is considered a success for Nebraska and Scott Frost.
All things Husker football with Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. Mitch, we appreciate the time and enjoy Saturday actually getting to see this team in person on the field. Thanks for the time. Saturday, take a first look at Jeff Brohm's Boilermakers in action in West Lafayette. We have live coverage of Purdue spring football Saturday, noon Eastern, only on Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. With that in mind, time for today's big interview. Purdue head man Jeff Brohm, kind enough to join us. Jeff, different coaches have different outlooks when it comes to spring games, as far as what you want to see, as far as how much you want future opponents to see of what you and your team can do. What's your philosophy on Saturday?
Well, we're going to, scrimmage in a controlled manner as much as we can. We want our guys to play in a game-like situation. For us, we do have quite a few guys that are not participating in the spring due to injuries and surgeries and things like that. So it's really for a lot of young guys to get out there and prove their worth and prove they're ready to play and get on the field. And a lot of times, if you can, put them in as many game-like situations as you can, definitely with the spring game atmosphere, and just kind of evaluate their performance there, you'll get a really good understanding of how far they've come and what else they need to do to get better.
Jeff, heading into Saturday, what position groups are you really comfortable with right now?
Well, I feel like we do have some experience coming back at certain positions. Having an experienced quarterback back and experienced tight ends will really be beneficial to us. Our starting center is back, who did a really good job for us. I think on the defensive side of the ball, we have some defensive linemen back, a couple guys in the secondary at the safety position back as well. I really feel like we're starting to gain more depth than we've had in the past, and that looks good. I think we have more guys that we can rotate in the game and feel good about. Now, I think we do need to see one or two or three or four guys emerge as a difference maker for us. That's the thing that I think we're missing right now is the George Karlaftis, the David Bell, guys that you knew that could compete against the very best on a daily basis. So we want a few of those guys to continue to emerge and find their place, and hopefully that can help our team.
You mentioned the experience at quarterback, and Aiden O'Connell put up some crazy numbers last year, eye-popping stats. What did you see from him, and what does he still need to show you to take that next step?
Well, I do think the last half of the year he played at a very, very high level. Really just came into himself. He had great poise, great composure in the pocket. Really threw the ball with accuracy. He understood our offense. He knew how to get the ball to our playmakers. He was staying in the pocket to the last minute. He would trust his protection. So I just think the maturity level and the experience factor of playing in a lot of games up until that point finally kind of clicked for him. And, we kind of built things around him and distributing the ball to our playmakers. And he was just very efficient and a great leader, works extremely hard, and we're looking forward to having him back.
You've known probably more than you want to how important it is to have backup quarterbacks ready to go with all the injuries that you guys have dealt with at that position over the last few years. So what does the competition look like behind Aiden?
I like our quarterback position. I think my brother Brohm has done a great job with our quarterbacks. So really Austin Burton is coming back for his 6th year. He's a transfer from UCLA that is a good athlete, can move around and make throws. He's played some football. He's got a good understanding of our offense, continues to get better. Michael Lamo is another highly ranked recruit from New Jersey that really started to come into his own this spring. He's had a great spring. He can throw the ball. He's got a good arm, and he's got pretty good athleticism as well. And then behind him, we have a true freshman, Brady Allen, who's enrolled early, that we think has a bright future. He has a big arm. He's got great size. He's a really hard worker. And, right now the game is going a little fast for him this spring, but that's what it's for. And really he should still be in high school, and he came here and he's working hard. So I think we're building depth there, and that is important. You never know who you're going to have to put in there, and the injuries can sometimes happen. So I feel like we definitely have gained some depth there.
Jeff, so much growth defensively a year ago. How do you keep that going into 2022?
Well, it is going to be important for us to win. We've got to play really good in all three segments, and I think we realized that from this past year. I thought we got much better on defense. We were more consistent on special teams. But for us on defense, it's about letting our guys play more aggressive. It's about guarding things tighter. It's about playing downhill. It's about allowing our guys to go for the interception, go for the big play. And if we get a big play thrown on us, we just come back and do it again. And I think since we've made that adjustment and change, and since we've gone to, let's stop the run, let's load the box, let's make them beat us with the pass, we've become a better defense. And I think our guys have responded. I think they understand the system we're in right now. Ron English will be calling our defense this year, which I feel very confident in what he's going to do and what he's going to bring to the table. But it'll be consistent with what we've done here this previous year. So I really think we can build upon that with quite a few guys coming back on defense. I hope that we can be a very good defense.
Jeff, so much of the talk with moving parts in football now is about players and the ability to transfer. But over the last few years, whether it's salaries or for other reasons, there's so much movement among assistant coaches as well. New assistants for you this year as well. How, as the head coach, does that affect the way that you can and want to do your job?
I think that's part of college football now. You're going to have change on your roster, on your staff quite a bit. You want to try to manage it as much as you can. That's why I think it's important that as the head coach, it's my responsibility to make sure that we're doing everything schematically, offensive, defense, special teams, and even beyond in the weight room of what the head coach wants to do and how he wants to do it. And we want to teach our guys to buy into that system and belief. And obviously it's open for adjustment, and we want guys to have ideas. But I think we're going to try to just keep the same terminology, keep the same system for the most part. While there will be some tweaks here and there, we want to just build on that. We want to keep that part consistent so that no matter who we bring in as new coaches and new personnel, they learn the way we do it here, how we call things. And I think if we do that, we can minimize the adjustment that our players have to make, and that's really the important thing.
Jeff, as always, we truly appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck. Spring game coming up this Saturday. Hope you get to see what you want to see, and most importantly, hope everybody that plays in that game on Saturday comes out as healthy as they went in.
Okay, thank you, guys. Have a good weekend. All
right, Jeff Brohm, Purdue head coach, as the Boilermakers get set for their spring game coming up this weekend. Every Big Ten team, every Big Ten sport customized your way on the new Big Ten Plus app powered by Big Ten Network. Stream hundreds of live, non-televised events, plus next day re-airs. It all adds up to a bigger Big Ten. Download and subscribe today. Our thanks to